Colorado decided to make some news, which they are doing quite often. Here we go. It is what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
It's going to be the Pac-5 before long. If they're not careful, Colorado leaves the Pac-12, which does that leave them with 11 teams now?
No, it leaves the Pac-12 with 9.
9. Okay.
USC and UCLA are gone.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so there were 9. I forgot to count them. Do we even have a Pac-12 any longer before we get into Colorado's move specifically?
No, because, Dave, let's be honest. Oregon and Washington are going to do whatever they possibly can to get out of the Pac-12 right now. They'll take less money to go to the Big Ten than to stay in the Pac-12.
I agree. So we would be at Pac-7.
7.
Would they take the Fresno States of the world?
But they're not Power 5 at that point. The only thing that would keep them afloat would be because, look, Arizona and Arizona State, one of those schools, those two are going to the Big 12. They're gone. They are gone. It's very clear the Big 12 wants to corner the four corners for 4 quarters states. So those two are gone. Utah's probably gone. I think Arizona State, and Utah are all headed to the Big 12 very soon. So I don't think we're going to have a Pac-12 at all. And it's funny, from the other end, the teams that are really in trouble are Oregon State, Washington State. They got nowhere to go. One of the Arizona schools is in trouble because only one is going to be picked out by the Big 12. And I think Stanford and Cal are in trouble. Everybody thinks because they're good in every sport that Stanford and Cal bring some value. Dave, I don't think they bring any value to it. I think in the whole new era of realignment, do you really think Stanford or Cal brings any value at all to a conference?
Maybe if you had just the right fit where you needed some academic integrity, but I look at the conferences now, and the SEC has its Vanderbilt, and the SEC is predicated more on football. I know they're student athletes, but yeah, they're athletes. And the Big Ten feels like they're academically superior anyway. So I don't know why you would pick Stanford up. But with the Big Ten or SEC or Big 12. I guess we're assuming the Big 12 would pick up any of those schools you just mentioned, right?
I think the Big 12 would pick up Utah and one of the Arizona schools. I don't think they pick up Stanford or Cal. And I don't think Oregon and Washington want to go to the Big 12. I think Oregon and Washington want to get into the Big 10 and will do whatever they possibly can to get into the Big 10.
Okay, if you're the Big 10, what are you waiting on? Why aren't you taking Washington and Oregon? I think here's why I think they're not, is they want to see how this whole traveling across country to LA 38 million times a year works out. That's my theory. And then if things work out after fiscal athletic year 2023, 2024, then yes, they could add a Washington, Oregon. That's my theory.
I think that's probably true. I think the other part of it is they want to wait and see what's going to happen with the ACC. Everything is a wait and see moment with the ACC for the Big Ten and the SEC because the most valuable programs to add go from Virginia down to Miami. There's about 7 programs that the SEC and Big Ten would both love to have: Virginia, Virginia Tech, NC State, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. Those 7, I think, have a home if they leave the ACC immediately. And I think the Big Ten and SEC see more value in those conferences than they do in the Pacific Northwest. And that's why I think they're waiting on.
All right. Please click that like button if you haven't subscribed at this point. We'd greatly appreciate that. And also turn your notifications on, as we will have the Vol Report with Cooper Mays and the Vol Report with Jacob Warren coming up later today. So that'll be good. And also the clips have been nonstop coming from Caleb Calhoun. So the YouTube channel is kicking it. So make sure you've got your notifications on, hit that like and subscribe button. Again, I know we've asked this question before, but I want to ask it one more time, especially given what's happened. And you have a Colorado that's willing to change conferences. I believe what you say with Washington and Oregon. Let me ask you this. Would you take any of those teams if you're the SEC?
Out West?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not opposed to expanding outside of the SEC. I guess you would say South area. I think the SEC at this point, what they're trying to do is they're trying to add a school from every state that was either in the Confederacy or a border state. And so
They're using the Civil War as the parameters of the teams that they're taking.
yes, and for the record, for people who don't know, Oklahoma was a pro-Confederate territory at the time, so they make sense.
Okay, so
And
who are you taking, Caleb, if you're the SEC and you can pick 4 teams right now? Are you
I can just pick any 4. This is
are you
easy.
going nationwide?
No, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia.
I would replace Virginia with Notre Dame, but those would be my 4. Why
You would
wouldn't you
okay.
go get Notre Dame? Then you're not even necessarily the SEC anymore. You're just huge.
Because if I'm the, because I think knowing the SEC's goals, they want a presence in every southern state. Virginia and North Carolina is all that's left, and so you want those 2. And I think Florida State and Clemson. If I were to cancel one of those out for Notre Dame, I'd actually throw Clemson out. I don't know how much staying power Clemson has beyond what happened this last decade in terms of a strong fan base.
Okay, so based
And
off your list that you threw me right there, Caleb, would you have Notre Dame? I think you were thinking of more southern states. Would you have Notre Dame towards the top of your list?
not over Florida State, UNC, or Virginia. I wouldn't. I think that I know I'm old school, I'm traditionalist, but I still value regional rivalries and regional connections and things like that. And I think if Notre Dame, it's like, who would be Notre Dame's rival? Kentucky? Like, who would be the team that Notre Dame, like, that you circle, like Notre Dame playing this team on a regional fight? By the way, they're not just in Indiana, they're in northern Indiana.
Yes, Amish country.
Mhm.
They, I know that because John Adams refuses to stay anywhere but a Marriott property, and you have to drive through an Amish town to get to a Marriott from South Bend to Indiana in the middle of the night. Just saying. So, I think it would be weird for Notre Dame because you can't have a tough non-conference slate as they have, which would be like Southern California. Who are the teams that they traditionally play? They traditionally play pretty good
Michigan, USC, Michigan
Yeah.
State,
So
Boston
what
College,
rivalry
Holy War.
would they have that they would keep? Would they try to keep Southern California? Is that it? Or are they done?
That they can't keep USC and Michigan, so one of those is done. I think you probably scrap for travel purposes. You probably scrap USC because Notre Dame's already going to have to travel a lot playing in the SEC, and at least with Michigan, you don't have to travel that much.
Interesting. Will there be more dominoes that fall? But Colorado, getting back to that, good move by them to go to the Big 12.
Great move. I think the Big 12 they're the most forward-thinking of the 3 conferences. There's 3 power conferences now: Big 12, SEC, and Big 10. And the Big 12 is the most forward-thinking because they have to be, because they don't have the traditional schools that the SEC and the Big 10 do. They're thinking more along the lines of a level of creativity, and I think the Big 12 long-term is going to have staying power because of that. I think right now what we have to say up front, Larry Scott may go down as the worst commissioner in the history of any sport. The Pac-12 commissioner, because the Pac-12 I always thought was the most. I knew the SEC and Big 10 were fine, but I always thought the Pac-12 would naturally be stable just because it was the only power conference out west, and you really have to screw that up to see power back to the Big 12.